Welcome all the viewers. Today I got my mate David Ward here with me. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you.
So that is that we're going to meet and talk a little bit about some Elkaroo songs and the issues, the human challenges that these songs sort of touch in one way or another. So what I've done, I've sent David, Deep in the Silent Sea, one of our songs on the first album.
Good.
And that we're going to discuss the human challenge that the lyrics sort of talks about.
Yes.
And why do I invite my mate David here? Not only is he a nice guy, but you've been working some 45 years now, right?
40 will do.
It's at least 5 years ago I interviewed you in a radio program, and I know it was 40 years now, so it's got to be at least 45 years now.
Sure.
David been working with running transformational workshops.
Certainly.
I think it's a sort of a good label.
Yeah. People ask me what I do, and I say I teach people how to be happy.
Yeah. You work on release people from the shackles of conditioning, religions, all the sort of weird things that prevent us from being free and strong as the person we truly am.
Sure.
Would that be?
Yeah. We look at we deal with the issues that are often transgenerational, sometimes the result of experiences this lifetime that harm us, hurt us, and crush us. And the work lifts those weight off the people so they can enjoy their life.
Yeah. And may I say, we're not talking 100 people here that you worked with. It would be thousands of people.
Probably, yeah. Certainly plenty.
Yeah. So personally, I've known David for 25 years, I think.
Something like that.
And I think I probably done some 20 workshops at David's place. And it's been fantastic. So I've encouraged both my kids to participate in the workshop, and both of them are absolutely blown away how much it meant to them. So thank you personally for myself, my kids, and what it done well for my private life. But the idea of these conversations now was to sort of discuss the issues in the songs, to look a little bit from a perspective of, you could call it mental health, or whatever label we want to put on it. So this first song, Deep in the Silent Sea, is sort of a song, well, I guess you guys have listened to it. The story is basically a guy gets stranded somewhere out in space, the moon, Mars, or whatever.
And there's two people experiencing that exact thing right now. It is unbelievable. But anyway.
They're vehicle breakdown. Boeing.
2025 they're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So
the song's not fantasy.
No.
Somebody's actually going through the experience of it.
Yeah.
After
it's
you
interesting.
wrote the song.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't write the song. Richard wrote it.
Yeah, produced.
So the people that know Elkaroo know that Richard Reid up in New South Wales, Central Coast, he writes all our lyrics. And I'm one of the muses that takes some of the lyrics, compose all the music, record it and produce it for me. Or my song. So this song, I reckon, it utilized the story about someone stranded in space. But if you distill it down, it's sort of a song, I guess, about feeling alienated to the rest of the world. I mean, I meet people sometimes to say things like, well, it felt like I'm not belonging. I feel disconnected.
Yeah, absolutely.
And or just to simplify to one word, loneliness. of sort of
The world's greatest disease.
yeah, loneliness. If someone comes to you and say, Mr. Ward, that transform people's life and teach them how to be happy. Now, I'm not happy. I feel lonely.
Yeah. So where's my move based on your statement? Is that the question?
Yeah, sort of.
I've discovered something really interesting recently, and I've been in this business, as you mentioned, for 40 or 45 years, and I've been doing belief work, which is important, what we believe, for 25 of those years at least, I would have thought, but certainly 20, no question. And it was only in the last few weeks I became aware of a body of work where you investigate what you believe about yourself. And everything I'd done prior was what I believe about women, what I believe about my mother, what I believe about money, blah, blah, blah. But this is a completely different model. So if you arrived with me now and said, look, I'm terribly unhappy because I'm so lonely, my first question would be, what do you believe about yourself that produces in your life the experience of lonely?
Okay.
And
so
that is a deep dive.
Yeah. Just to understand the question to start with. What are you actually asking for?
Sure.
But
because it's a disease. I mean, but it's a disease of the mind. It's not a disease of the body or the spirit or the soul or whatever those perceptions are. It's only a disease of the mind, loneliness. Because I was watching one of those weird YouTube clips recently, and this Buddhist nun came out of a 41-year retreat. 41 years!
Was it the same?
On her own. And she was saying too when they unlocked it. I mean, it was amazing, it's a mind, we've got to have a look at it. It's a mind health issue, in my view.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of things in life is, what's your expectation of how it should be?
Yes.
And that expectation is not very clearly arrived. It's an expectation that we grab depending on what media, social media, what friends, and all the surrounding noise of what should be happy life. So that's part of it, the expectation, how life should be, to be able to say, I'm not lonely, I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on one side, what it should be. And then on the other side is probably what you say, what I believe about myself in that, and what I believe about myself in a lot of ways, and how to be able to then plug in. And of course, if these are two pieces of a puzzle that doesn't fit into each other, which it never does, by the way, then I'm in some sort of conflict with the reality of my life, and so I'm rejecting the life I'm actually living and say I'm unhappy. And I put the label, I'm lonely, and that should sort of fix it.
Well,
is that roughly?
That's another story too, because what you're doing is you're interpreting an experience and saying it means lonely. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But really, from my perspective on the thing, if somebody's experiencing loneliness, there is some belief structure they have in place, okay, that produces that experience.
Yeah. Saying that, though, there is a lot in the way we live our life in this modern Western culture that have a trap that quite often, at least easily can create a situation where I become sort of isolated, quite often alone. In the old days, there was people around all the time, so you had to work together
Sure.
daily. You have to find water, food, firewood, all that stuff. And I mean, genetically and stuff, it takes thousands of years for us to change. So we're living with a genetic programming and I guess some sort of psychological and emotional needs that quite often doesn't get met in the modern way of living. So that can create like loneliness. So what's your take on that bit? Because that's real. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever people believe, the suffering is real. The belief might be wrong. So you can entangle this in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but the suffering stops the moment the belief changes. So the question is it real or not?
But let's say it is real. Let's say
Well,
I am
if it was
lonely.
real, well, if it was real, it'd be there all the time. They wouldn't come and go. It's only happening when they've got a belief running. The moment they're thinking about something else or, Jesus, the barbecue's burning, they're not experiencing loneliness, they're experiencing Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? You know, because it's so clearly a mind issue. You know?
But let me so give you an example of my own experience.
They're the only ones.
Yeah, which I'm not saying I don't have a lot of beliefs and shit. Of course, I'm full of it. Like most others, I guess. I had 3 flus this winter.
You did.
Right after each other, which basically kept me quite isolated in bed, and I couldn't live like the normal life I lived for almost 2 months.
Yeah.
And by the end of that, I experienced for the first time in my life, I could say, what I thought, is this how depressed people feel? Because I felt, what's the point with anything? Like, even get out of bed. What's the point? All I wanted was to go back to sleep, really, because it was blissful to feel tired and just drift away from the I would say, boredom of lying there in bed or walking around alone in my house, being retired and not having... but I normally have a social life, but I couldn't sort of tap into that for a long period of time. And I had a conversation on the phone with a mate, and he said, "It sounds like you're lonely, Roger." And I thought, maybe that's what it is, you know, I haven't socialized, I haven't... period of my life where I actually became isolated and lonely. What's your... How can I be happy when I feel so fucking bad?
We think when we talk about when we're lonely, we then start to look outside of ourselves for something to relieve it.
Yeah, like a dog. I was thinking, what if I had
or buy a dog, or take some good drugs, or go to Surfers Paradise for 2 weeks, or all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they work for a while. You know, sometimes just for a few seconds and sometimes for a week or two. You know? But eventually you've got to come back to yourself, you know, because you've got an option in this life to be either a victim of it or the creative force in it. And if you choose to be the creative force in it where you've got some sort of agency over it, the only way you can do that is through internal investigation.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Or otherwise, you need to book a holiday in Surfers Paradise every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Or whatever else you use, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's social media, television. This whole thing is about alleviating. You know? And the other thing about it is the environment makes us lazy. I mean, you can sit here, you've got 70-inch TV screen and all the bits and pieces. Everybody's got it, of course. And social media and all their friends on Facebook. And they scroll through all of that, and then there's this and that and so forth. So people get to the point, I think, of going, I really can't be bothered.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, just to come back to that, like, but TV, social media, nothing would cut it. Like, what's the fucking point?
Comfortably numb.
Yeah, which is a good song. So for me, just because I've started to sort of think, oh, do I have? So yeah, maybe I am lonely, and maybe I am a little bit depressed. So what have I learned about depression? Right? Oh, you gotta. What do I really enjoy doing? And do something physical and stuff like that. So I sort of forced myself to go out and do bushwalks.
Sure.
I tell you, that was like taking a pill. Like, it was
Yeah.
so healing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It was shitty weather. I mean, we had a cold winter. It was cold. It almost made it better. A little bit of drizzle rain. I brought some food with me. Oh man, that was so healing. It didn't take long, but I didn't have a depression, so I'm not sort of trying to compare with that. I've sort of had run very low, so it didn't take much for me to come up. But let's say I was very lonely. So if physical loneliness, what would you suggestion be? We're not talking that really deep journey, because that's a really long-term thing. So social media probably don't help.
If somebody's lonely,
yeah,
I would get rid of every piece of electronic equipment out of their house.
yeah.
No TV, no social media, no phone, no computer. Because in 1975, you had to go over and pick the phone up off the wall, you know what I mean? And it costs money too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because what it does is it's diverting the person from our environment now diverts us from ourselves. You know, most people are incapable of spending a few hours with themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And in the 70s, you spent lots of time on your own. You know, and the other part about it is too, it also creates real. When there's none of that, when there's no TV or no Facebook or blah blah blah. It actually creates real social interactions. You've actually got to meet somebody and have a cup of coffee and a croissant with them and and blah blah blah. You know, so you've got the problem of the environment the individual's in now as well. You know.
Yeah, that's what I meant with we almost trap ourselves into.
We have
so things like the men's shed and that sort of stuff is absolutely excellent as a counter. Activity. So I guess being retired and not having, I'm not longing to go back to work, but it did have like social stimuli continuously, right? We probably have a personal need of social interaction that is very deeply ingrained in us, and but most of these sort of things have something to do with survival as well, and that's why it's so important for us, right? In the old days, like, well, I'm talking thousands of years back, you would probably be dead if you didn't have, well, that might not be true, but yeah. But the upside of loneliness, I think when you say, well, the first thing I would tell them is to get rid of all the. So we talk about, what you talk about is probably some sort of reset or cleansing, you know. It's like some people now that go to retreats, bushwalking, now the first thing they need to do is hand in the phone and everything like that. Sure. To create that presence of being here and now and not look somewhere else and distract ourselves. So that could be an upside if someone is feeling lonely, whatever, do that detox and sit with... And
become their own best friend. That's the only solution, you know what I mean? Where you actually enjoy being with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a journey, and that takes a bit of work, you know, because we are, you know, because if I've got my best friend or my best girlfriend next to me, or whether I've got a Facebook page open, they are really doing the same thing, aren't they? They're keeping my mind entertained.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not so happy on its own.
So, be present with oneself.
Yeah.
So that's probably a challenge initially, but once you're over the hurt,
Sure.
I remember, I don't know if it was you, there was someone that recommended, I think it was a guy called David E. that has written a lot of books about mental health, that recommended to go out and sit in nature for at least 2 weeks with no stimulation. You'd bring absolutely nothing with you except the food, and minimum cooking as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember I cooked every second day, and I cooked rice and vegetables, a bit of tuna and stuff. So I was eating out of the same pot for 2 days. I had a fire going, and I was a bit over 2 weeks up in the bush up your way. So David lived in Hillsville. I was up Marysville.
Yeah.
There is a road out in the scrub that I drove for 40 minutes, and I camped by a creek off the road as well. And I didn't meet anyone. I heard some motorbikes, trail bikes, driving on the road. That was as closest to civilization. And I was sitting there alone, and first couple of days was challenging, and after that it was very interesting what happened. And one of the things I asked myself, it's a question that came by itself, would it be okay, would I be okay if I was the only human being on the planet?
Sure.
And the answer was, yeah,
sure,
fine, as long as there's something else living. And I remember I used to have birds coming, that would have been enough, but I want to have some more living thing. That's what I felt.
Sure.
So that was interesting, and actually shifted something in me, because I've always been a person that want to be Mr. Nice Guy and please people and be funny and all that. And there was some feeling of relief in the loneliness once I got over that.
2 days.
Yeah, a couple of days.
I did something a bit similar. 10 days in the wilderness, minimum food, nothing. Anyway, and the first 2 days were hell.
Yeah.
And after day 3, or whatever the day was, mate, I didn't care whether I never went back.
Yeah.
I was perfectly happy on my own.
Yeah.
That's our natural state.
Yeah.
This business about what our head does to us, literally, in this environment, and this experience of lonely and I mean, it's because of our disconnection from ourselves. Yeah. So and it's a wonderful thing to do. That sort of retreat on your own into the wilderness doesn't cost any money for a start.
It was pretty cheap. Bit of rice.
All you need is a tent and a blanket, literally, and a chair. I do recommend people take a chair, right? And after a couple of days, mate, you live there forever.
Yeah, there's something really beautiful and profound. I mean, the place where I camped, it just became so beautiful. Yeah. Because I realized how nurturing nature was. There was a creek, and I boiled the water, and then I could drink it. Yeah. And I sat by the creek. I grabbed water, and if I didn't have any sunshine, I did warm it up a little bit. I have one of these shower bags, black bags, that I filled up with water and hang out in the sun. And had a shower every second day or something, and standing naked in the middle
of now,
and hear the creek and having a shower, man, it was beautiful.
Sure. The only time I've done it, I was 40, so that was 37 years ago. Yeah. And I recommend it to everybody. I'm amazed we haven't spoken about it before. It's one of the most significant, profound things I've ever done. Yeah. It was just wonderful. Hell for the first 2 days. Yeah. Like your mind just about goes insane, yeah? And then, wow.
Thank you for watching the video about loneliness. Unfortunately, the cameras run out of battery, so we didn't get a good ending on it. But so thanks, David, for your comments around loneliness. Very valuable. There were some really good insights there, and I hope you enjoyed the video and come back and watch some more stuff. So see you later, guys.
Yeah.